Could you talk about your old collection of Star Wars toys? What happened to it? What stuff did you have? Well, I collected vintage Star Wars toys in my teens. I want to say I started about 14 or 13 and went probably till all throughout high school. Maybe until early college I stopped. So we're talking the 70s and 80s toys in little figures. I used to go to flea markets. You'd find some of them, even by the early 90s, even maybe mid 90s. There was a lot of Star Wars toy collectors. It was one of those weird things with Star Wars, more particular than even Transformers or G.I. Joes at that point. Star Wars always had a much bigger appeal in pop culture than G.I. Joes and Transformers. So Star Wars were always, people had them and always loved them, even in the early 90s when I started looking at it. Even though in the late 80s you could still go to Odd Lot or Odd Job stores where they have all the new old stock, and there was literally a wall of 99-cent and cheaper Star Wars toys. Walls of them. They're not hard to find at all, Star Wars toys. But you thought there was. I mean, in the early 90s, before really the internet, where you found these toys were you would go into like Barnes & Noble and find the big Toy Trader magazine, like it was a newspaper. You flip through it, and you see advertisements for toy shows. You can go to toy shows and get them. Or you can order them from you'd call up and order. They'd have the prices in these ads in those. I think it was called like the Toy Shop magazine, but it was a big newspaper. I remember my dad buying it. So my dad was into like the little toy soldiers, like the Marx figures and little guys from like the 50s and 60s. So that was your option. You could order from there. If you were in an area fortunate enough to have a toy show, and there was a great one in Totowa, New Jersey, that they had, I think like once every couple months. I bought a lot of good stuff there. And yes, you could find flea markets and get them, but that was few and far between with me. I never found like a great, like, oh my god, look at this stash. Or thrift stores. I remember going to some thrift or junkie stores and finding, for example, I remember finding a Wampa, the Empire Strikes Back's Wampa figure, just the box for it though. And my dad one time found a store where the one store had, not complete in box, mostly complete in box, Death Star Space Station and a Max Rebo band in the package still, which he didn't get for me, which annoyed me because I always wanted it. And a Millennium Falcon that was mostly complete. And these were cheap. It was like, I don't know, 10, 20 bucks each for these things. And that was a good price back then, because the prices of these toys in the early 90s versus now I think are actually worth more when you account for inflation. Like getting these figures on the card backs, they were like $400 in the early 90s. That's like $1,000 today almost. Or at least $800. That's a lot of money. But yeah, I had about 20 to 25 vehicles in the box. I love the playset more. I had the Death Star playset, which is fantastic. I should have kept that. Looking back, that was such a cool looking. It was like huge, like 4-foot box. At least 3.5. I exaggerated. Maybe I was smaller. I had that. I had like the Jabba dungeon and the robot factory and the cantina playset, and I had my X-Wing when I was a kid. I had the TIE Fighter. I had the Darth Vader TIE Fighter, which was really cool. I think the basis of the TIE Fighter Advance, if you're familiar with the PC games. A bunch of others. Off the top of my head, I had a Snow Speeder. I had most of the good, like really like the ones, the Millennium Falcon, the ones that when you think of Star Wars, that's what you think of. And they all came from the fact that I had this Darth Vader case I found at a swap meet or a flea market in Connecticut back when I was really small, like probably like 9 or 10, and I kept that and eventually started getting figures. I had about 100 figures at the end of my collecting days. 100 figures, probably 90 or 80 to 90 of those are probably complete. I used to pick up bags of... sometimes you go to these flea markets or toy shows, you find like weapons you can buy individually or bags of weapons. I would just buy them when I saw them and then, fill in the gaps or buy them. Even on eBay, you can buy them in the late 90s. So I had a bunch of complete figures, and I had only a few figures in the package. I had like Boba Fett Return of the Jedi, the Sarlacc scene on the package, and I had a Princess Leia 12-back with a 20-back sticker on it. So when I bought it, someone thought it was a 20-back, but no, it was a 12-back. Now the backs means is how many figures are featured in the back. 12-back means that's the original figure line from 78. There was only 12 figures. It showed 12 figures in the back. So they're worth the most money because they're the earliest and hardest to find. And then the 20-back was the 1979 release. I know I just got some toy cred with some of the Star Wars collectors out there by even knowing that. Then I had a Luke Skywalker 12 back, except the bubble was slit on the side. So what happened to all these? I sold all it when I moved out of my parents' place because I didn't want to bring it with me. I was sort of over Star Wars, thanks in part to the awful prequels. Awful. If you think the third one is average, I think Revenge of the Sith is average. The other two are terrible. And that sort of soured me on the experience, unfortunately. I was one of those guys, yeah, didn't ruin my childhood, but it didn't make it feel any better either. So that's what happened to it.